Greetings and salutations, everyone out there. How's that for a nice Star Wars type intro? What a great time to get together with you guys and have a wonderful guest with me right here, Princess Leia Rose herself, talking about Star Wars. How are you, lady? Thanks for being here and doing this with me. It's going to be fun.
I'm doing fine, Pops. How are you?
Oh, I'm so blessed, and it's so super cool. We connected, and I just kind of like gave the open door for her to do this with me sometime. We've kind of worked it out. I've had to cancel on her. I don't know if it was the hurricane or one of the storms or if it was something else. I've had to cancel on her and reschedule and stuff because we've had a couple months here that have just kind of driven me kind of crazy. But here we are talking Star Wars. A couple of OG fans that love old stuff, some new stuff. We love stuff over here, stuff over there, and also some of the face of it. Man, a cool dude in the chat. He and I were on for like ever the other night talking about this Wakanda thing. Hey, Steven, by the way, I'm still clipping little 2-second snippets off the copyright nonsense to try to get approved. And the best part was I got through all of their things and it was going to refresh and go through, and they kind of started over and went back again. And it's like, I don't know. It's weird how it works. It's part of the gameplay you have to do sometimes. And I will admit it's my fault because I got greedy showing snippets because you really got to stay at about 7 seconds. And boy, if you're over it just a little bit, they try to get you. And yeah, we had a couple segments where it was like 13 seconds. I think one was 20. I'm like, I don't know what we were doing. we were watching the show, I guess, because there was like 20 seconds. So, but hail to Steven and anyone else in chat doing that kind of thing. So before I get too far into it, Leigh, let me just say that with Star Wars, I treat Star Wars as not being particularly denominational, but rather a reflection of like kind of like all the religions. And in Taoism, which I think is probably one of the most influential, is the Buddhism, Taoism. There's a lot of that, the nature of the universe and, the way you lead your life and, your true essence and these kinds of things of the Tao. And I think as a Christian or as someone who's read about Islam and Judaism, I've read about Buddhism and Hinduism, I at least understand some of it. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but I can say I think that's why many of us see so much religion in there. And I think you would kind of agree with that general assessment. And however
Yes,
you
I do.
feel free to add to it if you want. So. Let's see. Christian Fender Geek is here. We'll say hey to him. Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you hanging out. Yes, Nos. Leia. I know. So awesome, huh? And yeah,
Hello,
CFG is
Chad. I can't see who's saying hi, but hello to everyone, and I hope everyone's having a blessed day.
awesome. Well, we were going to try to put them on screen the best I can. I apologize if I can't keep up. And hello to one of my members, Zach's my friend, my brother. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. I appreciate you being here as well. And so Leia, when you look at the Star Wars as a franchise, whether it be, OT, prequel, sequel, it doesn't really matter. Just take it as a universe, as a guiding principles, that kind of thing. How do you kind of view some of the spirituality and some of the religious elements as kind of like very, very like, I don't know, 10,000 feet kind of thing?
Like what you were saying, Pop, that it's intertwined spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone may view it differently through their eyes, but it's still a special thing that we all gather, that we all have a love for this.
Yeah, I had a clip I'm going to pull up here in a minute from an interview that George Lucas did, and he uses the elephant metaphor, which is, imagine, 5 or so blind people blindfolded standing around an elephant. They have one hand on the elephant, and then when you ask them to describe what they're feeling, you've got one that describes like a palm leaf because they're at the ear. You have one that's talking about like a boa constrictor or a long snake because they're at the trunk. Someone's talking about like a round, thick, maybe a tree trunk because they're at a leg, so on and so forth. And George is kind of like out of a universalist sort of kind of perception of how he wanted to approach religion and spirituality and mythology and intertwine it all together. But you do see, I think, what are some of the things that are more on the nose for you? Because obviously the clearest thing is the way the Jedi dress and hold themselves as sort of like celibate monks.
Right. I like the Jedi code. They remind me of the Catholic monks or the Buddha monks. That they are sworn to celibacy. And despite, Anakin being conflicted with that, but there's a lot of comparison to me with the Jedi Code, how strong, I'm not saying that they're taking one side, but that they're light. They don't want to, I'm not saying the code is, peace and harmony and one with the Force, but they're denying the latter part of themselves. That's how I feel,
Oh, sure.
I mean, the balance of life is life and death. They're intertwined. And
Sure,
it's like they're living half of a life. That's how, I mean, I'm not saying, but after the years, that's how I feel about it. I mean,
no,
it's
I
one
think
view.
that's on point. That's on point. I think I can agree with that. I think that, I quoted, Taoism, and it's like more like, it's how you live your life. And I think that, you and I talked before the show about our own personal faith, and it's like, living it out and living out your faith, whether you're a Christian or a Jew or whatever, living it is more important than just your words. And in obviously
Right.
Star Wars, the way you live it out is kind of the defining line from you being on the light side of the dark side, like you giving into your anger and it becoming rage and wrath and harmful to someone is the same thing that a Christian would believe when you're violating, Proverbs 15:1, saying, well, anger is a normal part of your emotional response as a human, but when it becomes wrath, that's when it's dangerous. When you actually are angry and then you hurt someone in some sort of way, whether that be physically or emotionally. So the religious parallels, I think we both agree, cross the plane of all sorts of denominations and faith, and even just sort of just general spirituality of just, the old golden rule, I do unto others as you want to be done to you. So, do you have a specific example that you think is, obviously there's some things that are on point. So I don't even want to count things like, Last Jedi, the way Luke sits on the rocks with his leg crossed. That's almost like too on the nose for me. I don't want to get into something like that. I think it's too on the nose.
Right.
Is there something else that's like kind of, it's like really, you kind of like, wow, that felt very spiritual or very religious?
Yeah, there was a scene in the Revenge of the Sith when Anakin and Obi-Wan are fighting on Mustafar, and you could feel the anger. You could feel his hate. Overwhelming him, and then Ben Kenobi trying to get to him. But everyone knows that Anakin was just, already, what's the word? Influenced by the dark side. Sure. He just embraced himself. Ben, who loved him like a son, was still trying to reach him, but in the end, I can't say that he should have listened, but he just fell down a path that he chose to follow. And that's life. We choose our path. We choose who we want to be, how we treat people. And in the end, it's going to affect our reality.
Yeah, that's very,
and
very
Anakin's
true.
reality was already, lost. He could have been saved, but that's another story with him and Padme for me. I have opinion about the relationship, and I don't think anyone wants to hear that.
Well, Jacob is here. Jacob Ironside, another great YouTuber, is here. So we're loading up the chat with some awesome people. Ryan the Machine himself is here. So hey, you, my brother, from across the pond. It's awesome to see you in here. Mike over at Pacific 414. A great show last night, Mike, by the way. Try not to. I was dipping in and out, Mike, because I have not gotten through all of Arcane, but I definitely enjoyed the conversation. So hey to you, my friend. And there's ZBR representing across the pond as well. Zion Box Reviews, the great mod over there at Ryan's channel, and obviously dipped in and now started doing some content of his own. So that's freaking great. I think Yoda's teaching, right? The anger leading to hate leading to suffering. The pain. So put on my preacher's hat, right? So there's something that really struck me with a pastor I learned this from, and I've tried to pass it along is, we'll say, don't hold a grudge. He said, well, you don't hold grudges. Grudges hold you. Like, you suffer more by holding the grudge than you think you do by being resentful towards someone. And Yoda's teaching there of hate and anger and hate and suffering couldn't be more true. Because if you're going to be full of that negative energy that's going to basically consume you, the way you were describing Anakin is so spot on. He was like so corrupted by allowing himself to go down that path. And that is, as you know, to use a Christian, because I mean that's what I am. Just I've been open about it. You were as well. It's like we call that sin. Like when you're giving into that darkness, you're giving into that. We struggle with it all the time. It's a back and forth, and we do falter. But surrendering to it is different than making a mistake. Allowing it to consume you. And by the time we see that battle on Mustafar, like you were describing, Anakin is consumed. He's already become Darth Vader in a way. Right. He just hasn't been fully transformed yet into the Vader that we know. Let's talk about maybe the differences of sort of the religious and spirituality in some of the different movies or things like that. And Chad, if you have certain things you kind of want to bring to the table, please feel free to throw some things out there. We're just going to have a conversation through some of these things, and we'll let George speak for himself as well. I have this video. This is from a 1999 interview that someone else used, and I'm going to steal it from them because, I am. I'll put a link. I'll try to remember to put a link in my description when I put that out there so people can see this for themselves. This person's doing kind of a pretty big, long religion on Christianity type thing. I had earmarked this from a while ago. I'm not going to vouch for the video itself as much as I am just for the footage of George. So I don't think I hit share audio. So let me pull that back and make sure the audio plays. So bear with me one more second, folks. I don't know if that counts as a blooper according to Ryan or not. He'll keep me abreast of my blooper counts. So yes. Let's see. And we will wait and wait for it to populate and hear from George. And George has a very traditional sort of like universalist approach. So
all of the issues that religion represents, and trying to distill them down into a more modern and more easily accessible construct.
So he's going to lay the groundwork of a very sort of universalist sort of approach to things, like I didn't write Christianity or Taoism or Buddhism or anything else. I wrote something that's a very big framework thing. And I think that's important for everyone to kind of understand. He didn't go into this with the agendas that we like to see in it. It's like, almost like it's, I don't know, Leia, if you're familiar with that term, confirmation bias. Like you look for the things that you want that confirms your own beliefs and ideas. I don't know. I fall victim to that,
agree.
And try to challenge myself not to. But yeah, I think that's really what's at hand with Star Wars. It's him admitting, I didn't really put that in there, guys. So if you see it, you're good. You're good. Like, I think that's kind of what he's saying here. Let's see if we get a little more out of him here.
That people can grab onto to accept the fact that there is a greater mystery out there. When I was 10 years old.
So he's going to talk a little bit about his mom. I want to jump ahead because I'm going to get the copyright nonsense here. Is there a God or whatever? It's just like asking those deep questions in life and those kinds of things. I don't think there's another snippet of him. So there are a couple spots where he'll talk. So we'll do this one.
Remain balanced.
Oh, I didn't get it right. Anyway, so the general gist is he's talking about there's something else out there. He didn't write. This is not a theology first. It's the fact that we can see the theology because it's so well written and the principles are very universal. And I think that's what we've been saying. Oh, that must be my video playing in the background. So I got that off there in case you guys heard that. So when you think about some of the films, is there something that stands out to you that, good or bad when it comes to some of these kinds of, I don't mean really good or bad religion, just more like done well, not well, something you like that really kind of pointed to something maybe good or bad religious-wise?
It's the one when they, isn't it The Last Jedi? Despite how Luke was handled and him dying by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that really bothered me. Despite I'm a Ray fan. I mean, I thought that was kind of like I don't know, it was terrible. But him communicating with the Force, him on the rock, Luke on the rock, was a moment for me of clarity, of him acknowledging that his life is ending and he's ready to let go.
Okay. And from a religious, spiritual element, whether or not we talk about the film element, it's irrelevant. But from a religious, spiritual element, I do kind of get that, right? Because like especially because it gets really on the nose with the Buddhism and things like that, of the spiritual projection and those kinds of things. So that's very, very true. Yeah, I can definitely see that. And actually, just the fact that his isolationism of how and again, whether or not it's on the nail or not, you can see that's what they're going for, right? A very hardcore, in your face sort of approach with that,
right? With reality,
religious
right?
Of separating yourself, alienating yourself. The priest that feels like he can do more harm than good. Those kinds of things. So yeah, that's definitely a good example.
But even though he was alone on the island and he cut himself off from the Force, it's like him cutting himself off of life. I mean, even as a Christian, and I'm Catholic, and I mean, I'm not saying New Age Christian, but still, he's taking the world on him, thinking that or as the character blaming himself for one thing that happened, despite I think he was. I'm not saying. In that moment, he was overconfident with his school. I don't want to get a lot of people angry, but I mean, I thought maybe I don't know, he wasn't up to par for this.
Well, no, I think his character even tries to admit that. I don't know the execution of these principles were really done right for the film part, but from a religious standpoint, they're going for he's arrogant. And then when it fails, he has the guilt from the realization that he was arrogant and failed, and realized he can really damage other people. So therefore, spiritually, and to keep the Force isolated so they would do less damage. And then whenever he feels like there's an ounce of hope through Rey, he allows that to project and try to do something good in his last breath. So from a religious standpoint only, folks, I'm not trying to defend Last Jedi here. I am trying to explain from a religious, spiritual standpoint, because part of the problem with that film is that this stuff got way too on the nose. Part of that, the reason this didn't work was it wasn't metaphorical enough. It was too on the nose and doesn't make sense to the character's journey.
Right.
And it creates too far extremes that you can't even come back from. You're doing things that don't make sense because it doesn't work for the story arc. But from a religious, spiritual interpretation, it gets way far away from like the monotheism of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and hard into Taoism and Buddhism, in my opinion. Maybe I'm right or wrong there, but that's kind of how I kind of interpret the religious elements of Last Jedi. And we could compare that to something like midichlorians in Phantom Menace, which went like really weird into, it's in your bloodstream or something. That was just really, really strange. We'll come back.
I would say, Anakin could be a mutant if they're talking about midichlorians. I mean, who would think that blood cells could, I'm not saying, I don't want to get a lot of people angry, that could empower you. It's a cell. I mean, even with the X-Men, there are certain cells. So why couldn't Star Wars do the same thing?
Oh no, it's even worse than that, because if that was the truth, and like basically all we had to do was do blood tests on people to determine if they're Force sensitive or able to become a Jedi, right, then you're down the road. Now you're down the road of like xenophobia and like 1930s Germany. Like you're down that rabbit hole of that type of prejudices, right? Because you can just say, oh no, you're not in the chosen one class, you're not in the special group, you don't have the genetic, you're not in that group, so therefore you wouldn't be. So that's why that element, it kind of derailed this really interesting and complex universe that he created in the original trilogy right out of the gate of the first movie. And I don't think people at the time thought of it in the religious spiritual realm, but in hindsight, as we've had time to chew on it, it becomes very clear, like, you are undermining the universal principles that you went through so much trouble to establish in such a great way by trying to even raising this comment. Like, it's just dumb that this would do. Now, I admit they could, if I was stuck with this and I had to rewrite it as a writer, I would just try to say midichlorians aren't really a thing. It's like a spirit. It's like some sort of weird manifestation of a force user. It's not really a one-to-one. It's almost like saying the tests are not foolproof. They don't really work. It's like some people have them, some people don't. And, you know, Anakin was a weird, like you said, it's easier to lean into the mutant argument than the force argument, because like I said, it messes up the stuff. So, well, let's go through some of the chats, because yes, there's some funny stuff here. Zach's, by the way, bro, I left and went straight to the store. So for those of you who don't know, Zach and I were having a conversation. My computer went black, not went off. No, went hardcore black screen. And literally when that happens, as a content creator, your stomach drops like, oh crap. Fortunately, I got to the computer store. They were able to take just a quick little rundown on me. And it's like, it's just a power supply. So up and running for like $50, man. So there we go, man. I'm texting him. Yeah. We're okay. Do I look hauntingly handsome? Well, hopefully it's not just hauntingly, it's just handsome all the time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Nos, keep in touch. No, Stephen Ransom is like, no, not hauntingly handsome at all. No, I appreciate that. But lovely Sherry might disagree because she is here. Hey, lovely Sherry. Hope you're doing well.
Hey, Sherry.
Let's see. Stephen did your boy dirty. Well, I'll take it. I can handle it. I'm Caldworth. All right. So the Sith is truly the sin of wrath. Oh yeah. So it's literally, and I think that is the one thing I wish. So if I had any element of faith and religion, I kind of wish they dove into other, like, okay, it's a little too on the nose if you believe in Christianity like I do, with the 7 deadly sins, right? You get into, gluttony and lust and some of these different things. I kind of wish the Star Wars universe, since they're going to expand it in so many different ways, part of what they would do is have these spiritual elements play out with the other 7 deadly sins in different ways. So I think that what could have saved something like Boba Fett would have been a better show had they really dove into, let's say, the sin of gluttony being a theme, because we dabble with that with Jabba the Hutt, but not from a force way, but maybe with something else that dealt with in the realm of the Boba Fett universe. Like, well, let's deal with like a gluttony as a sin, and maybe having something that connects to this spiritual realm through different sin factors and not just anger, which is the one that's used the most. So just my thought. Let's see. I think Snoke is the best. He went out like a champ and was extremely fleshed out as a character. I think you mean literally fleshed out on the floor, because he did not go out at all like a champ. Because
he didn't go out fighting. I mean,
he's trying to see if he can get a rise out of me. I also think that Rian Johnson's a genius and the closest thing to a demigod in Hollywood. See, you're just not right. You're just not right. Hey, Kali Chow, how are you, my friend? Hope you're doing well. And let's see. If Luke did not want to be found, oh, hey, Bobby. Hey, if Luke did not want to be found, why did he leave a map? I don't know. We're not discussing the legitimacy of the films. We're not getting into the content. We're trying to stay in more of the religious elements of these kinds of things. But yeah, they're talking about Snoke. And there are a lot of xenophobic races and cultures in Star Wars, though. No, I think that's great. And actually, there are. Okay, so this is an interesting metaphor that got very on point, right? In the canon, the extended universe, I have no idea where we're at now. I've kind of divorced myself from trying to keep up. So maybe you know more. The Empire basically banned kind of like actual like religions for a while. There was a period of time, right, where they're like, we're not doing any of that. But they've kind of like, it's all kind of gone away. Each planet, as long as they're not causing problems for the Empire. But the religion almost become more like the dictator of the religion. Like the religion in the Empire was kind of like, worship the Emperor. He's the only thing that lasts. And then there was like there's like several phases where they like demonize the Jedi as being like the kooky villains that are spiritual and whatever. So that's why they're a danger, kind of like turn them against them kind of thing. So some of those elements were flushed out in some of the extended stuff. So Zombie Box Review, dumb fan theory. Andy Serkis played Snoke in TLJ, and now he's in Andor. They think the two characters are the same. No, that's just dumb. That is a dumb fan theory. That is a dumb fan theory. That doesn't make sense. That would not make any sense. I mean, the only thing that really makes Snoke make sense is that it's a bad clone of the Emperor, and they just didn't do that well in the final film to connect those dots for me. So, Flacids are throwing that theory around. Well, the Flacids actually came up with a great theory about Andor, so I don't want to derail our conversation, but I actually may do a video just about their conspiracy because I kind of elaborated on it. So, okay. I like the Mandalorian culture before Disney Empire took it over and destroyed it. Yeah, with the way they handled there only being 3 of them and some of that kind of stuff. But the idea of there's only one way, they're celibate, they don't show their face, some different elements. And Jacob, you're more of in the extended stuff than I do. Leia, I don't know if you know much about Mandalorian stuff from some of the books or whatever. Is there more spirituality or surrounding that? I don't really know more spirituality surrounding.
They're more like the knights. Wasn't there knights in England that were like
definitely
of King Arthur?
Like King Arthur or Templar Knights, right?
Right, the Templar Knights.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, that's a great metaphor. So more of, again, a different version of spiritual commitments, of vows of celibacy and different types of ways of living out your life that is representative of your faith, right? So whatever that faith and however it's manifested. Now, those are very, I guess we would say, sort of very secular humanist perspectives on your faith, not so much into the spiritual realm, which kind of works, right? Because you have Mandalorian versus Jedi type stuff. So it would make sense that there's some conflict there, because you would have some conflict between secularism and, actual faith, as there would be, as you and I were talking about before the show, as there would be between monotheism and the polytheism. Like there is some conflict between finding Christian allegories in Star Wars and then trying to also argue for a Buddhist allegory in Star Wars, so they can be in conflict with one another, because not necessarily both things can be true, but they can both seem true. So there's more talk about the Star Wars themselves, and then of course Knott's point out how the Wookiees are extremely untrusting of outsiders. I think it also meant that that made me more like a just for self-preservation reasons,
right? But isn't there certain, I'm not saying not even in the Catholic faith, there's nuns and there's priests that live celibate, not besides taking the oath, and they live in like not a convent like.
No, that's a great, that's a great thing to talk about too here. So let me get there, because with like priests and nuns, so you're taking like a vow of celibacy and separation and trying to be a steward of the faith and administer it, depending on what the call or what the role is. Is that how you would see, let's say, force sensitive people or users that may not be Jedi, kind of like we saw Donnie Yen's character in Rogue One, where you have force sensitive person? That'd be interesting to see more of that, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Because he was one of the, he and his I don't remember the characters' names, guys, so you guys can throw in chat. I don't care enough to keep track of some of this stuff, but those two characters are one of the best parts of Andor. The movie would have really been boring if those two were not in it, and part of it was Donnie Yen with the force sensitive stuff. I would love to see more of that. I wish some of that was in Andor. It really would enhance. That really would have worked with the characters in this heist element of that subplot, was that they would have had one person who could have been force sensitive but not a Jedi, like just kind of attuned to something. Even if Andor dismisses it the way Han Solo dismisses Luke and Obi-Wan in New Hope,
Right.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad you brought that up too. I don't think about it that way. That was a good way to think about it. I haven't thought about that.
I mean, I was going to bring up Han Solo, how he didn't believe in any of the Jedi, the Force, the Sith, until he was older and he's seen it for himself. And that's sometimes people get blind in life and they have gifts, and the misuse of the gifts are taken away. Like his son, Ben. How he turns to the dark side. I mean, even in that scene where Luke's over his bed and he's only seeing Ben with the dark side. Honestly, how would Luke know that if that was going to happen? I mean, the force
Mhm.
is always moving. It's always changing, like Yoda said. Nothing's permanent.
Yeah, it becomes a free will argument too, right? It's kind
Right.
of when we talk about God, it's like, well, why does God allow suffering to happen? Why does God allow bad things to happen here and there? And it's like, well, then you have a free will argument, because really what we really believe is that we've been given free will. And yeah, you might have, again, put on the preacher hat, right? I use the yacht, the cruise line analogy. Like, God's plan is the cruise is going to go from point A to point B. You're on the cruise. You have free will to do everything you want, but what you're doing on there is not going to change the direction of the boat going from point A to point B, barring blowing up the boat, which is not part of this conversation. So the free will is the moving around on the boat. The boat can still be it will move from point A to point B. And I think that Han kind of being almost like the audience watching Luke's evolution.
Yes.
And by the time you see, and this is one of the bright spots of Force Awakens, it was him saying, yeah, there was this guy named Luke, and this is what happened, and it was all true. And you have a real genuineness in some of those in those moments where you felt like, oh wow, this dude really has come a long way from the denier in the Millennium Falcon, 20 something years ago, 30 something years ago, however long it was supposed to be. I think it's kind of what you're hitting on. So let's see. I missed some. Okay. Steven says Bushido is an actual spiritual order in Japan that is followed by swordsmen. Okay. Yeah. I know obviously to go down that, and that's where you kind of get into, he really, obviously you talk about things like Seven Samurai and things like that are clearly part of Star Wars. So like that element of Japanese culture, and not just about having swords, but just their way of life, just their selflessness, their willing to sacrifice themselves as warriors and things like that, trying to keep the peace and trying to keep order. So Nas is making his self-proclamation in some ways. Okay, Mandalorians are extremely different. Oh, hey, Soul Assassin, from the Lucas era to where they were like Spartans, trained and saw war as a way of life. Yeah. Okay. Well, interesting. Yeah, you're right. Obviously, there's a radical difference between extended universe Mandalorian stories and taking on the Wookiees or different things that happen versus how it's manifested now. I will say there's been a couple of bright spots with the shows where they show some flashback. There's that one where that you have that flash, you see the bombers and all of them attacking a planet that was supposed to be his home planet. That was actually a little bit there. So yeah, EU Mandalorians are brutal yet extremely prideful and have their own code of honor. Yeah, they've kind of driven all over the map with that because they're trying to let some of these principles go away. It's like, well, you've walked away from your faith. So I don't know how I feel about the Force afterlife, since it drove Yoda crazy, because now he's a deranged lightning bolt calling pyromaniac. Yeah, again, that almost got too into Disney Marvel. I don't want to. A Disney Star Wars. I'm not sure. Yeah, I understand what you're trying to say. I will say I wasn't sure how I feel from a religious spiritual conversation. The Force ghost thing is a little weird to try to draw a line to. I don't know. Would that count?
I think
Hinduism, like reincarnation type things or something. No, that wouldn't really work either. I'm not sure.
I think. Oh, go ahead, Pops. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I'm passing the torch. Go ahead, help me.
No, Force ghosts are. I can't say if they got things to do. Maybe a ghost. Force ghosts. Okay, Force sensitive. They enter another realm, another dimension that they're supposed to help people. You know how Obi-Wan, Anakin are still there.
Sure.
Maybe they're there for a purpose, a divine purpose still. George Lucas didn't define Force Ghost. It could be anybody's, opinion about what is a Force Ghost.
So I'm trying to draw in Christianity because you have a lot of visions. And I guess you could look at maybe a parable that Jesus would share about, seeing not Lazarus that was rose from the dead, but the other guy, Lazarus, at Abraham's side. That story, the poor man that's at Abraham's side, that Lazarus, the rich man, is seeing.
The rich man and the poor man, right?
So I don't know if the Force Ghost thing could be drawn in that way. I don't know enough about. I know there's more visions in Islam that I would not feel comfortable trying to best guess at. I don't know about Eastern religions and where some of those things could be drawn from. I see how it's manifested in Star Wars and how it's used, but I don't know how to draw a correlation to religion and spirituality there. But I also could see it mean something that would make sense. And there are people that believe that, right? They really are people who believe the dead can still talk to you. They're in heaven. They can still help you. They pray to their dead loved ones, not just God itself or their savior themselves. They believe, I pray to my grandmother or whatever. So that would make more sense with the Force Ghost principle as well, making it something that's very accessible for people, right? I mean, that's I think a fair compromise, maybe.
I still
there's hesitation there, so I guess I'm a no.
I still think okay, it's not reality. All right, Star Wars is just
Right.
George Lucas's dream, which I love, but still, when it comes to he should have defined this more. With the a Force Ghost, I believe I'm not saying, but it could be a theory of that people left there still to help other people. They're in the state of another realm.
Purgatory.
What was that, sir?
Maybe kind of like a purgatory situation, like he's trying to draw some metaphors or something, maybe to a purgatory.
No, purgatory. For the Catholics, purgatory is a place of cleansing for souls that are.
It's a place of atonement, but again, we're talking about George Lucas. So I'm not sure he understands purgatory. I totally understand the concepts of purgatory and atonement, and basically, I always likened it to being. I think it's the scriptures that are being, you're being refined by fire, right?
Right.
But there's also a lot of people who have sort of a misconception of that. Again, I'm putting some of my own
because in the Bible it states that there is only a heaven and a hell, and there's no in between. I mean,
so refining a fire is what the Catholic Church actually teaches of purgatory, but people have misconstrued that as almost like the waiting room principle. And since George is very universalist, I wonder if he thinks of it as. I think he thinks of the Force Ghosts more as maybe archangels. He thinks of them more as the powerful Force beings that can still come to the physical realm and be useful and help someone, and then go back to the spiritual realm. That's what I think.
Yeah, well, I could agree with you with that one.
So I think that's probably the best way. I think our purgatory correction probably drove me back to what I think. So, Padawannabe, hey there, my brother. The boss, by the way, I have that clip coming, my friend. He, Leia, on my stream the other night, because he got a pack of cards on one of my streams. We had a contest or whatever, right? A giveaway. He chewed the gum out of a 1983 Return of the Jedi pack of cards.
Oh my gosh, really? Sour
like a
face.
Boss. Like, no sour face. Like, we showed the cards, and then he just takes the gum and just throws it in. I'm like, holy crap, he just chewed the gum, and then just chewed the gum. It's the best clip ever. I was getting some advice from Zach's on how to tweak it to make it a short.
Okay.
Yeah, 40-something-year-old gum. Yeah, that's crazy.
Awesome. That must have been an experience.
Oh, it's great. It's the greatest video. And listening to the three of us respond, it probably makes it even better. So this is a tough comparison. Every planet and culture has their own beliefs, but the Force is universe-wide. All religions would feel uneasy or question this with so much difference in the galaxy. Yeah. So I think that's what makes it very interesting, right? It's a fun conversation, because I do think what George is saying is the Force is universal, a universal element of religion. The question to extrapolate this to what we think of as God, so especially for a monotheist, right? Someone who believes in, again, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, it would be asking, well, who made the Force? That's where you start to get the definitive question. So George stays away from that by leaning more into polytheistic religions, particularly Buddhism and Taoism. And I think that's where, I have a hard time as a Christian, where churches will try to exploit fandom with having like a Star Wars series where they are really trying to pick and choose scriptures to tie it to Star Wars, and they have no idea what they're talking about. And it just really, really makes me mad as not only a Star Wars fan, but as a religious person. So anyway, thank you, Padawan, for a great comment. And not all beings believe in the Force. Fair enough. No, I think that fits too. I think that's accessible as well. Stephen, who knows so much more about some of this stuff than I do in some ways. Tibetan Buddhism. The monks and nuns separate the connections of the world through denial of the flesh or the stupid body to let the spirit transcend. That's correct. Yeah, no, I agree.
Yes.
And I think that's what the, in Catholicism, that is technically what the priests and the nuns are supposed to do. And, you have monasteries and stuff, with like in Tibet. But as a Christian, denial of the flesh is supposed to be for all of us. Like you're supposed to be in a constant state of prayer and denial of the flesh. You're trying to control your sinful nature because it's very easy to be the heathen. It's very easy to be the heathen. It's hard to be disciplined. It's challenging.
Well, you know what? I mean, one could train oneself. I mean, not to get off the subject of Star Wars, sure. I could use myself for an example. Mm-hmm. I broke my pelvis in 2005, and the state of mind that I had then is that I couldn't walk after the 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. And then I had 3 Christian therapists that said that it's how you would look at yourself. Because the mind is a very powerful tool, and how one relates to a situation in self-control is one of the gifts of the Spirit, of the Holy Spirit.
You do realize you're speaking New Hope language, by the way. This entire part of the conversation is just literally ripped out of Obi-Wan's mouth, giving Luke advice on a Millennium Falcon. Everything you just said. Just so you know, it is religion. It is so fun, and when you dive into this, like you do, everything you just said is your mind can't do it. You needed someone to help you. All the stuff.
Right. I know. Right.
It's like
but
you
still,
learn.
I mean, still, I did it because I perceive myself to walk. And I think through trial and error, even with the Jedi, you learn through life.
It's so much fun doing this because I literally am envisioning. I wish I had the clip through the Obi-Wan with the helmet, and Luke does it, and then it's like, see, you reached out with the Force, you pushed through, you accomplished it. I mean, it's like, yes, it's exactly so. And Nash, you're pointing out really the other part that makes this fun is the fact that just like in real life, in Star Wars, there's people that believe it's all a myth. The Force thing, right? That's an old religion. That's whatever. No one believes in it. As well as whatever tribal religions and things that they do on their particular planets can correlate to other tribes and things that we're not even getting into the level of. I mean, obviously there's, hundreds, if not thousands of other sub-religions in, let's say, South America or Africa that are more tribal religions that I'm not going to even try to pretend to be able to communicate well. And that would be more in line with like maybe how the Wookiees and how the faith might drive their culture and those kinds of things. So Soul Assassin says there's like 10,000 Jedi Knights during the Clone Wars, thousands of worlds that have not seen a Jedi, hence why most in the galaxy now see them as a myth. Yes. And then also, as I understand extended universe stuff that I had read many, many years ago, the Empire did a great job of demonizing those people as being the villains. So therefore, even places like that, it's like you would see them in a different light, right? You see them in a different light. Easier to make myths and stuff out of them when you don't look at them as the heroes. Most important character in the prequels is the old woman in Phantom Menace who warns Anakin about the Death Storm, saying, "My bones are aching, Annie." Why does he? You need to super chat that next time. That's what you need to do. Make that. What are you doing to me? Force Ghost is a rare ability that is lost till Qui-Gon rediscovered it. Oh, Jedi knew about slowly transition next life with stay behind. Okay, I did not know that. Is that okay? I'm going to take your word on that, Soul Assassin. Listen, whatever EU stuff I've read, it has literally been many, many, many moons. And I've gotten rid of almost all of it except for like the original, like Thrawn trilogy and stuff. So, yeah, the Mandalorian. I really, really wish they would do what you said, man. I would love to see Mandalorian, Spartan, Viking stuff. That's really what I was kind of hoping they were going for. I was hoping they were going for another bounty hunter, but then I would have like a whole bunch of Mandalorians and stuff out there. So, and Sean is here as well. Hey there, my friend. Hope you're doing well. Okay, Steven Ransom's got to head on out. So, you take care, my friend. Thank you for hanging with us for so long and all your great input and comments. Let's see. Maybe it's okay. So stemming from a native cultural communing with the spirits and nature to be one with knowledge. You know what, Padawan, you're bringing up a good point too, Leia. Maybe the best way to think about Force Ghost stuff from a religious, spiritual way could be to look at like Native American culture, where their spirituality literally is like afterlife ghosts, afterlife type manifestation. Like they really, that is really part of like Native American writings and things of that nature. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but that totally seems in line. That okay. Thank you. You kind of connected some dots for me there, Padawan. I can see that now. This is the fun of Star Wars, right?
But I have a but with this, Pops.
Bring it. Let's go. Let's talk this through.
Well, okay. I hail from a tribe in North Carolina. The spirit, there's something where you could connect with your spirit animal, and being a faith. I mean, even being a faith believer, mine was always. A wolf. People could give you an example that my grandmother was heavy into that art, and I mean, what can I say? I'm not really particular with that. Saying that. Well, I should stop myself because I'm going to end up putting my foot in my mouth with that one. But I do believe a lot of. Go ahead, Pops.
So I think you're cautious to try to seem like you're passing judgment on their beliefs. And I'm not trying to place judgment on their beliefs or believing in, the spiritual animal stuff. I was just trying to liken it to that belief that there are people that would believe actual manifestation. They actually believe spiritual manifestation of an animal and or a person. And that's more in tune with some of what I think Force Ghost stuff kind of represents in Star Wars.
Right, I agree with that one then. I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Right. Well, again, we're not trying to dive deep into judging religions or judging the movies themselves. It's more of trying to see religion and Star Wars and how it's. Because I think that this is to me, again, folks, if you weren't in the beginning, what the beauty of what I think George accomplished was, especially in the original 3 films, he laid a framework of such universal principles of religion and faith. And again, I quoted the Taoist stuff I wrote down because I'd read this in a book I have about, Taoism really is a connection of like what your true self is, the way you lead your life, and the nature of the universe, right? As a person that's a Christian and a faith believer, I try to point people to, you have all these questions that you usually try to get to at some point in your life. And it usually boils down to those 3 things. Like, well, what is the world and how does everything operate? And when did the world start and all that? And, who am I? Am I a soul? Am I a being? Do I live after I die? Those kinds of things. And then what do I do day to day? Those principles is what George hit the nail on the head with. So therefore, that's why we can find all of these things in it, because all of those religions, I think even something cultish, probably still come back to some of those 3 principles, pretty much, give or take some. So that's how we got there, folks. And yes, Soul Assassin, Padawan, 20-year-old gun. And I have to give Ironcaster credit. He did chew his gum. It was from 1984. He chased it with some Taco Bell sauce. So we put Padawan up here, Ironcaster there, and Loki and I haven't done it.
Oh my gosh, Pops, you need to do it.
I asked for $50. I'll be honest. I did say this dates back because there are still packs. There's packs right over there. A football card pack right now. It's got gum in it from 1983. And I said, I'll chew the gum because I've opened it twice. And I said, but I'm not chewing the gum. I want at least $50 because who knows what it'll do to me. I'm old. I got all sorts of allergies and stuff. I mean, I'm not really going to have an allergic reaction or anything like that, guys. But it will make I don't know how sick or gross it'll be. I feel less concerned after watching these 2 gentlemen not get sick. But no, I have a price tag on certain things like that. Let's see. The older I get, the more interested in Stoicism. Okay, interesting. I'm not able to commit to buying a single religious idea. I'm definitely not an ist. I'm really more of an ish. Okay, fair enough. No, look, this is not about judging anybody or anything like that. I apologize if I do say anything. That was definitely not anything we had talked about wanting to try to accomplish. We just wanted to explore this conceptually, and the fact that you can literally go to YouTube or Google Star Wars, add a religion, and you'll find stuff. It doesn't matter if you do Taoism, you do Christianity, you do pick a thing. It doesn't matter. You'll find it. Why? How? So when we talked about having this conversation, I was like, that is fascinating to me, that everything can still be. So what are the universal principles? And then let's go out from that, try to talk about some examples and have a fun conversation. I think that's what we're doing. So Solasasm, all good. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, Steve Ransom, you again take care. People saying goodbye to him. So personally agnostic, but these are conversations of very. Yeah, I agree. I would never want to come across as being judgmental. I don't believe that's even the way that I don't even believe that's what my faith is asking me to do. And yes, Phil, look, Princess Leia Rose. It's the best, isn't it? Yes. Okay, yes. George Lucas treated Star Wars like Heinz 57. It's a little bit of everything. Yeah, he treated it in a very generic, universal way. And he got more than 4 billion thinking about it. Okay. And you feel judged. Feelings are hurt. Watch Gator. Make the poll. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So again, chat, if you got other examples in movies and stuff that we really talk about, I really kept thinking about how much the Yoda trading scene, obviously in Empire Strikes Back, struck me the most from a spiritual standpoint. Because so many of those things were like Jedi religion, but also like just good advice, like a proverb for me personally.
Right.
There's like, do or do not. There is no try. It's like you just have to do. You and I are talking about like faith in action, like just trying to do things. Like we don't want to hear about how generous you are. You know what I mean? Like we want to know what you do, and in some ways. As far as my faith is like, don't make a spectacle of what you do. I'd rather stay behind the scenes. I'd rather not tell anybody about it. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about, watching the person benefit from whatever blessing I have. And then I can transfer to someone else. Cause I didn't usually create the blessing. It came from, what I believe is my creator. In Star Wars, what's interesting is seeing the spiritual manifestation through Luke's training transform him into someone that can trust whatever faith he has, whatever this Jediism is, for lack of a better term. Do you find that interesting? Because you're a bigger fan of the sequels than I am with the Rey journey, that you see her as from a spiritual Star Wars. I hope my metaphor is getting kind of muddled. I'm sorry. How do you see Rey's journey in that element, in that way? How's that?
As being called, a person being called out. In the beginning, she finds a lightsaber, and then she doesn't want it. She doesn't want nothing to do with it, meaning she doesn't want to do with her talent. Even though, whoever picked her out, she's overwritten anyway. But in a spiritual thing, a person coming of age, being called out by the universe or by the world to do good, knowing that her past is dark, she overcomes it. But how I look, it's a struggle for her, and that's where I could connect with Rey spiritually. An unknown coming of age story, even though I don't know how old was Rey when isn't it the Force Awakens, 18, 19?
Yeah, that's how I always looked at her as a 19, 20-year-old maybe, so 18 to 20. I'm fine with that number. Similar to Luke, maybe a little bit older than Luke, but not much difference. Obviously, it's just a female version of Luke on that same kind of journey.
Right.
What kind of decisions will she make or not make, pretty much. That's why I didn't judge it as harshly in the beginning as I did near the end, because I felt like they shortchanged her journey. They messed her journey up. I don't think that and again, I feel mostly heartbroken for Daisy Ridley and all of this. But I feel the same way about it. Like the point of Rey is there's some sort of call. I really wish they had touched more, because remember how Luke, there was comments made about like he could do the canyon run that other people couldn't do. There's things like that. Like I wish they had made allusions to the fact that she was able to do certain things that other people couldn't do because she was force sensitive, but she didn't even know what that was or that she was that way. I think that would have helped people accept her more on her journey. You know what I mean?
Right. I agree.
I will say I liked, and this is again why they went cowardice on us, because they didn't keep her as Kenobi's daughter as they originally planned, because I would have liked the darkness of The Last Jedi and all of that had they followed the proper story that they originally thought about doing before it made its detour. And because the darkness elements and some of that stuff because the way I saw it, like her cave scene to me seemed more like it's very easy. It's almost like a warning of, if you're going to sin or err or go on this path, you're going to end up down such a cavern of maze that the reflection that's going to come back at you, you're not even going to recognize. It's going to be you, and you'll see you, but it's not you. It's just, I mean, I loved some of the metaphors they were trying to go for. It's just that they weren't really hitting the nail on the head. They were kind of hitting around it, and then eventually they got it in. It's just, yeah. So that's kind of how I felt. I'm glad that you were able to articulate how that journey meant for you. You know what I mean? That's really, really cool to me. And we talked about that too, about how you liked Rey and all that. I think that was kind of cool because she's not, her character in the journey isn't really the biggest problem of the sequel trilogy. It's a lot of the other stuff that happens around her, right? And, her character trying and working through things. She's literally not given a lot of authority. Like she's mostly the product of things that are happening around her. She's not the one changing things as much as people think they are. That's my opinion of them all. So Padawannabe says, family done enough in their own right creates judgments. Conversation is a lightning, to say the least. I can't talk about it. Trust me, bro. We all have that. It doesn't matter. Most families have stuff, or you got a relative that wants to stir up trouble. Politics and religion, man. Established channel, he can ask for donation. I don't count it as a donation, man. It's called spite funding. I was told, how much would it cost for me to pay you to review the Cats live action movie and do a live? I said, a couple $100. There is no way. Holy crap. I cannot imagine my brain trying to sit through something that abominationally bad. And I said, I want $200. And they tried to raise some money, but nobody would do it. It's called spite funding. I learned it from Michael Malice. He actually will take money. He eats foods from all over the world and things like that. And that's how I learned that exists. And after that, I kind of had a new standard of trying to get something positive back for basically torturing myself. That's how I look at it. So torture myself money. I'm right here with you, Pops. Empire gave me goosebumps, and it blurred the lines of what's right and wrong. Finally. Yeah. No, so that. There's so many things there in those scenes that really hold up. So, hero's journey, yeah, and the messianic elements are there as well, and some of this kind of stuff. Joseph Campbell, yeah, definitely, and the archetypal things, yeah. So again, this kind of crosses that line between religion and then just general mythology of having archetypes and different things like that. And he kind of applied a lot, and to me, I think he applied a lot of religious principles to those archetypes, so that when you would create a character, this is how that character would be defined. I'm not sure they always do that these days in any of their writing. So no Star Wars without Kurosawa. Okay. Patterns throughout the modality of the narrative. Life is story. Yes. God is the ultimate storyteller. Saint Pops. Thank you. Awesome one. I am not Saint at all. I am a muddied mess. Luke's family fell to evil and came back. Yeah, redemption arc, right? The saving story. Rey's family became what the evil was. Even she can right a wrong path, no matter the past. Yeah, and I think that they were going for something that wasn't bad, even if they keep her as a Palpatine. It's like, but the redemption arc didn't quite get there for me because of how they muddled up her journey. Anyway, so the story was the problem, not just on the path. Yeah. Dr. Gesture, my friend, thank you so much. Mark my territory like the toxic male I am. All right, man. No problem. Hey, thanks for hopping in here and hanging out with us. So, Leia, there are other sort of like other religious or spiritual elements you kind of want to throw in there before we kind of wrap up? I think we really covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, you have. I mean, you're more in depth and more well conversed with everything besides me just being so quiet on the other end. I learned a lot more through hearing you out.
You're selling yourself short because you dropped a couple truth bombs. The next thing you know, I went motor mouth on you, and because you made my brain think about things. Like I'm still processing the purgatory analogy as well. I know that seems like
Oh, okay.
it's wrong because I logistically understand it. I've looked it up and researched it enough to make sure I understood what the Catholic Church teaches, and I did have some time in the Catholic Church. Married
Um,
married as Catholic, but I do understand the misconstruction of it. So I'm kind of like really interested in some of these things. Then of course you had the Native American thing that made me think about something else. So yeah, you have really kind of probably wound me up like a top more so than
oh,
you're giving
really? I do.
yourself credit. Yes. Yes. I've enjoyed this. It's been great. I love hanging out with you and talking about this kind of stuff. And this is one of those things where there's no real right or wrong answers. This is literally like the ultimate of nerd talk where you can just talk fandom and nerdy stuff. It's not like there's some real right or wrong thing
Okay.
in this conceptually, because George said it. I just threw a bunch of things out there that everybody can kind of think about. It's kind of good for everybody. I mean, George said it. We played the quote. Like, George admits, don't think too much into it. He did it on purpose to make it very generic. So yeah. It's been fun. Chat's always been fun. So yeah. All right. So are you you going to do a little more streaming more often? We give you a little bit
Uh,
of get to the
if,
bug yet?
if I'm asked, I would. I mean, I need to practice
Mhm.
besides just sitting up on the line. You know. Um, there was one thing about Ray that you mentioned,
Mhm.
that Ray's journey is almost like one of the Catholic's nuns, Sister Faustina. She
Okay.
she was called out by Jesus during a dance to come, and he got tired of waiting on her. And the
Mm.
thing is that Ray's probably going to be better off celibate. I'm just saying, than producing any offspring, which might be dark, and they could make more movies out of if. But to be a teacher, I
Hmm.
mean, with that, Faustina did do a lot for the Catholics, Mercy Sunday and everything else. Like, if Ray's the next Jedi Master, I'm not going to get, I don't want to get a lot of people angry, but the next Jedi teacher for the next sagas to come, if they do that.
Wow. See, my fan theory. So if I had to make more movies, like I don't know that they will, but let's just assume we had to and you paid me to do it. I'm going to have her start as a teacher and she's going to try to put together a Jedi Order. And then she's going to turn evil and they have to stop her. That would be my story. I know
That's
that's
a
what I mean.
lot
That
of
was,
people. That's a lot.
well, I just think that the Jedi Order that she would bring into play would be this
Would probably,
hodgepodge of young and old that have been scattered all over the
yeah.
universe and whatever, and that the journey is her falling back into the family curse, falling back into the Palpatine
Oh,
curse.
yeah. Okay. I
She
see.
can't deny who she really is. It's too much of a pull. And it's not about as much about the Empire part, because she still may even have disdain for that part. But the fact that it will take her students to rise up and become heroes in their own right and take over the franchise so it can
Right.
move forward. That would be what I would do. To me, that's the only thing that becomes interesting enough for me to at least have a conversation about how to rejuvenate it. Now, I could be
Okay.
completely wrong, because I wasn't going to write Last Jedi. I mean, Rise of Skywalker the way they did. I was like okay with making Kylo Ren Vader. I said they should open with him finding Emperor hooked up to a whole bunch of machines, and Snoke is nothing more than just one of the latest clones that went badly. And then he's like, okay, you want to be Vader? And then have this thing attack him and basically turn him into more machine now than man, and just rip him apart and whatever. You're just this, you're like this imbecile little child. You don't know the powers. And and it's like this whole thing where, the Emperor's kind of alive, but he's really just basically like this, I don't
On
know,
life support.
life support being that's being like, he makes clones of himself that never really manifest very long. They have very short lifespans, or they're not formed right and whatever. That's how I would have started Rise of Skywalker. It was like, you'll find this. You want to be Vader? Well, fine, I'll make you Vader. I'll torture you into it. So
Right.
Okay, Rose. Okay, so you might like the Young Jedi Knight books. They focus on the Luke Academy and its students. There's a YouTube channel called YJK Audiobooks that make custom audiobooks that you might also enjoy. Cool. So that's a very good recommendation. I'm going to write that down as well. Hey, you never know. Cool.
Right, because I've read some of the Young Jedi Knights with Jaina and Jason Solo, with the Wookiee and Princess, one of Leia's old flame's boyfriend, the Hapen Prince, the daughter. They should have stuck to that. They would have been fine.
Yeah, the original EU stuff of having the twins and stuff like that. But again, they didn't want. They wanted to do their own thing, so they own all of the rights. That's what they did. Could not wrangle stray Jedi. Too many personalities and feelings. Yeah, okay. Nos, do you have you asked for a poll? Yeah, he definitely asked for a poll. Yeah, I don't even pay attention. So has the pay the poll toll. no Gator respect. Yeah, I don't know, man. You guys are crazy with your stuff. So, all right, guys. Well, listen. I guess if we did a poll, it would probably be more like which film has the most sort of like religious and spiritual elements in your opinion, kind of thing, right? That would be the poll, right? You would throw out a few of them and see. I would think that New Hope, Empire, Revenge of the Sith would be the big three.
Yes.
I think that really, like, it's almost like Phantom Menace and the whole midichlorians is almost like sacrilegious, and Attack of the Clones is almost like a-religious. It's almost like him following his fleshly desires to go have the woman and betray his oath. And then when you get to then I guess we had those three, and then I guess the other options would be from the sequel trilogy, which would be probably Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. And we didn't really talk about Rise much, but because a lot of the spiritual religious elements basically are repeats of the other films, but we'd still want to have another option if we could. So those would be that'd be what I would think we would do for a poll following this stream, according to Zach's. So anyway, there you go.
That sounds great.
All right. So we're going to see her out there more. If you guys want to talk Star Wars and want someone that really knows her stuff and really has passions and love about it all, feel free to hit Princess Leia Rose up. Her Twitter and stuff will be in the description. If it's not already, I'll make sure I check all my notes probably tomorrow and hit her up. Maybe she can join a stream with you, be a guest, and continue to encourage other creators to share their voice and their stuff like that. It's been a freaking blast, man, to hang out with you guys and talk about something like this.
And I do appreciate you inviting me, Pops. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, so Assassin, I agree. I literally have Dark Empire right up there on the shelf, right? So it's like, you have this element of how the Emperor would basically survive Return of the Jedi and still exist and those kinds of things. The Spirit and the clones and the dark side of stuff. Oh, yeah. Oh, trust me. And I love the Thrawn trilogy, which kind of dove into some of the spiritual elements as well. And this is the reason why I hated the fact that they went in different directions. So, but no, great job, Leia Rose. Couldn't agree more. It's been a blast. And people are welcome, man. I want to hang out and talk stuff. So, yeah. So, let's see. So yeah, she's another Star Wars YouTuber. She is. At some point, maybe she'll have the right kind of setup and the right kind of time, and because a lot of times we're just juggling life stuff. You know what I mean? If you look at if you could see my analytics, you would see these peaks and valleys of me dabbling with the Pops channel in between all of the rest of the stuff in life that I was doing. And everyone has all those different journeys, and maybe she can't do her own channel, but she can definitely be a contributor in this space and talking about something that we love so much. And we can just talk about the positive things. We don't need to dwell. I don't think we went too off base into negative things or areas of disagreement. And this is one of those fun topics because, like I said, I don't think there's any way anyone could argue some spoon-fed perfect answers. That's just nonsensical. So, but thanks to all of you. Thanks again, Princess Leia Rose. Let's see what we can do to have an out video. Let's see. Oh, by the way, Zach, I know you're still in the chat. If you do that RR dancing scene, the Nacho song, they copyright flag that, just so you know, even if you do a face swap on it. So I can't do that one anymore. That one's in here, by the way. That's why I brought that one up. So, all right, we'll do something I did Star Wars to open. I don't have another Star Wars thing in here. So let's do, oh, wait, I have Padawan chewing gum. Okay, you guys deserve to see it going out because I've talked about it 2 or 3 times. Here you go, guys. This is an exclusive here because I haven't really uploaded it to YouTube yet. And if you didn't watch the live stream, here you go. Thanks again to everyone being there. Thanks again to all of you. Thanks to you members that are there. I appreciate everything. And again, thank you, Princess Leia Rose, for being my guest and hanging out with me for so long. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Pop, and thank you, Chad, for tolerating.
She's the best. She's the best. We'll talk afterwards too. Anyway, so take care.
All
right.
Okay, so I stacked all the pieces here. We're gonna.
Oh, he went for the hardcore. I wish I could see Loki's face.
Wow.
Padawannabe is the boss.
You're the boss, brother.
You're the boss. We are clipping this. This will be a new clip.
It's like dusty pop rocks with no pop.
Pop rocks with no pop. Holy cow!
There's no way that's gum anymore.
It's just no taste at all.
There's no. It still tasted like chewing gum, but there's.
No, you're a soldier, brother.
It just turns to dust. There's no.
All I can say to that is,
not staying.
ooh-ah.